Hello, everybody. Welcome to my Facebook Live today. And my special guest today is Dr. Gina Loudon. Good afternoon, Dr. Loudon.
Good afternoon. So good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here, and happy past Mother's Day. I'm sure
Hey,
you
to
had
you
a
too.
one. Thank you. You have 5 kiddos. You're a mom. I mean, you're an author. You're a wife. You are a businesswoman. You are modern day superwoman. But what I really wanted to highlight is that you are on President Trump's media advisory board, and you're also co-chair of the Women for Trump 2020. Tell me, how did you get on that journey in that leadership role?
Well, I have to just credit the president every step of the way. I can't really take any credit for anything. He inspires me to this day. He had me in tears on my way to the studio today because I watched this video. It's posted actually on my Instagram if people want to see it, at Real Dr. Gina. I watched this video just set to the music of Frank Sinatra's My Way, if you haven't seen it. And it's just memories of the things that he's done for us so far, set to that song. And I love him so much. And I'm not a sycophant kind of a person. I don't really, I serve a risen savior, and it's Jesus. And I don't really get into worshiping political figures. I'm married to a former senator. I don't get enamored with politicians, especially, and except my own husband. And so but there's something really special about the way this president gets us, and the way that, I don't know, I watch him, and I told my husband, we were there at the inauguration, and I was watching him, and I said, I see his thoughts like a ticker across his forehead. Like when you watch on Wall Street and the ticker, or on TV and there's a ticker. When I watch him, I see his thoughts like a ticker, and it helps me understand like what he's thinking. I don't know, at least I think I can, And so even things that offend maybe some people who watch him never seem to offend me, because I feel like I know his motivation. I know what he's trying to say. I know what he's trying to do. And I just don't, it doesn't offend me. And his motivation to me has always been something that is so giving and so loving for America, and so selfless, that I've just been inspired by him from day one. I was not a Trump person before the day he came down the escalator. I didn't know him until after he was elected. I'd never met him. And except for one brief interview, I should make that parenthetical. But yeah, and so it's just him who inspires me, and he really does. And I've never seen someone give so much with so many knives in their back and do it so relentlessly and tirelessly. And I'm inspired. I don't know what else to say. It's just him.
Now, we have a lot of people from Colorado watching today who are women who have been selected as Women in Action by our Colorado chair of the GOP, Christy Burton Brown. I am one of the 25 Women in Action. And something that's really, thank you.
Yeah.
Something that's really important to us as women and as moms are our children and education. So I'm running as a candidate for the University of Colorado Board of Regents in the 6th Congressional District. And for 26 years, I've been an educator, a principal. I've worked in higher education as an adjunct professor. So every mom has hopes and dreams for their children, and you're a mom of 5, one with special needs. And so I'm just curious, what are your expectations as we prepare young people for the future?
Well, first of all, thank you for your willingness to serve, because I think that a lot of that work can be thankless. A lot of people think that running for office is glamorous. That is, at least until they do it. And then they realize very quickly that it's not so glamorous, and that no matter what decision you make, about 50% of the people are going to love you for it. About 50% of the people are going to hate you for it. And the ones that hate you for it are a lot louder than the ones that love you for it. And so I just want to thank you for that, and to congratulate you on your recognition and that of your audience, because we need to build each other up and recognize each other. I don't tend to be someone who likes to divide us up by gender identity. So I don't like to do the whole woman thing, but I do think it's really important as women that we do take the time out to congratulate and build each other up as women. And so I want to definitely do that and encourage you along the way. In terms of education, it's interesting because I spent much of my life as a home educator. I too, in fact, my first master's degree is in counseling education. I'm looking at my producer back there. He keeps track of my education for me because I lose track of it for some reason. Detail's not my forte sometimes, but is in counseling education. And so I thought at one point about going into university education. I do love to teach, and there's something amazing about that. And I have done it. I've taught at the high school level and at the college university level. And so I think it's critically important, and it's evolving. And I think some of these things in the ways it's evolving due to COVID-19 can be exciting. I think we can look at the bright side of this. I think there are good things about it. There are obviously some negative impacts as well, some things we're going to have to work around. As a mom, as somebody who spent a large portion of my life home educating my children, I lived in California for a while, not the optimum place to send your kids to school. And there were times in my life where I was traveling extensively for my career and my husband's, and it made sense for us to bring our children along with us if we ever wanted to see them. And so I did that for a long period of time, homeschooled them, and I've sent my children to Christian schools and public schools. So I think that the most important part of education is bringing them alongside of you as a parent and making sure that they understand and are experiencing the life that you have chosen and why. And during this whole coronavirus thing, it's been very interesting to me to make sure of a few things. Like when I used the term dystopia, as I was describing some of the police state happenings and the infringements on our liberties that I was seeing, and the way that our our society seemed to be just taking this, just people that I thought understood what freedom was and going, okay, well, because someone out there, some bureaucrat decided I needed to stand this far from someone, I'm going to do it. Or because someone says I need to wear this article of clothing on my face, I'm going to do it. When maybe there's contrary evidence that we should examine or at least talk about, I think that the arbitrary is what bothers me. For example, you're standing in an airport and they make you stand 6 feet apart while you're standing in line to get on the plane. But once you get on the plane, you're sitting next to the person, right? Just little things like that, that don't make any sense at all. And so I think when we are in the business of accepting rules put on us, or let alone laws added to the books that are being imposed upon us, we need to look at some really important things like, are the laws being put on the law abiding, right? As if we were the lawbreakers. How about we punish the lawbreakers instead of adding laws to people who are not breaking the laws yet? See what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
I think those are really important distinctions. That's the way I've always seen the Second Amendment working. You don't punish people who haven't ever broken a law. I've never broken a law in my life. Why can't I have my full constitutional rights? Why should I pay for a possibility that I might someday break a law because someone else did, right? So don't tell me what to wear or where to stand if I've never done anything wrong yet. Right? And I think that we need to keep those liberties in mind. So when I was talking to my children about what is dystopia, I realized that, I don't think they've read George Orwell. And I think that's a really important part of the way I frame my political context and my knowledge and what I fight for every day for their future. So while I've got them home, by golly, they're going to be reading 1984. They're going to be reading Animal Farm. They're going to be reading Brave New World. They're going to be reading Atlas Shrugged. They're going to be reading these things that were a critical part of what made me a freedom fighter from day one. And so I think those sorts of education that we as parents can add to whatever it is they're learning and their interests are perhaps the most critical part of all. And I don't want to leave out faith, because I think that's the most important part of all.
This is a great segue into my next question about something that's important to us, is the economy and how that plays in. So I want to share a little bit of data for our viewers. So the economy is an important issue for women. 40% of US businesses are women owned. last year, 64% of new women-owned businesses were started by women of color. And I'm a small business owner as well. And so I was really excited to hear this. In February 2019, the president and Ivanka Trump established the Women's Global Development and Prosperity Initiative, where the three pillars are women prospering in the workforce, women succeeding as entrepreneurs, and women enabled in the economy. So when we look at the trends, we see that more and more women feel confident to start their own businesses. And so for all the young women who might be listening to us, what's your message to them about why economic empowerment is so important, and especially right before a new election?
Well, I love the question. And I think it's also important to note that under our president, there are more female CEOs than ever in the history of the world. I think it's also important to note that there are more minority women. You touched on this, but I just want to illuminate this: more minority women in the workplace than ever before, and in positions of power than ever before. And I think it's also really important to note that donations to our president since 2016 have more than doubled from women donors. And the majority of those donors are small increments. And I think that's important to note, because what that says is this isn't just wealthy people donating, right? This isn't just, trust fund babies donating to keep their important businesses or whatever. These are women business owners. These are new entrepreneurs. These are women in manufacturing jobs that the left was going to take away from them and ship overseas, but our president brought them back, right? These are, new Americans who've immigrated to America and feel safe under this president's amazing immigration policy. And so I think it's really important to note that women in this country understand what having a strong leader like our president does for women and for our families and for our children. And I think that's really, really important. And we don't divide up by gender. I think it's so fascinating that Joe Biden says, I absolutely am only going to have a woman for my vice president pick. Well, really, Joe? Because I want to hear about qualifications. It is insulting to me as a woman for you to say that you are only going to have a woman. What does that even mean? Look, the way I see it, you got a 50-50 shot of being born a woman. So I'm not really impressed that you're going to pick a woman, because that tells me you're picking, you have this person has a 50-50 shot of being your vice presidential. I want to know that you're going to pick someone who's impressive, who has credentials, who has character. When's the last time we talked about that in the Democrat Party, right? So I want to hear those kinds of things out of Joe Biden, and I'm not hearing that, frankly. And so I think it's better that we on this side of the aisle, in the Trump party, if you will, as I prefer to call it, frankly, if we're going to identify as a party, that we're talking about qualifications and credentials and character and the things that really matter, and the reasons that I believe our president tends to choose people. As a message to our daughters and to future generations, I think that we have to remain very bound to our foundation. Our founders were geniuses, and they understood things that our president has understood very well. Things like, look how well federalism worked under COVID-19. When we had this shutdown, our president made the decisions that he had to make as the executor of our country, but he also deferred to states' rights. And you watched it work. It was amazing to see where you saw the overstep of big government. It happened in the states and in the cities and then in the municipalities where they were run by leftists who get power drunk very quickly, who love big government, who love control, who love to tell you what to do. In those particular governments, when the president handed them back the power, which they're entitled to have under our Constitution, guess what? They took advantage. And we saw beaches closed for no reason in some cases, beaches that are never crowded, closed for no reason. We saw parks closed where people couldn't go get vitamin D, which we know is a natural antiviral. And we saw people get sicker in those areas instead of get healthier. We saw people put into nursing homes, and we saw nursing home populations die without any forethought of what that might mean. Now, relatives can't come visit, their loved ones in the nursing homes, but let's send COVID patients there. That's a great idea, New York. You know, things like that we saw take place. And that's when power was handed over to a bureaucracy that gets drunk on power. And that said to me very carefully, we need to think about where we live. We need to think about who we elect, and we need to think about what their view is on power and limited government. Limited government is such an important thing. Freedom is such an important thing. Liberty is such an important thing. Understanding the foundations of our country is such an important thing. And having a strong leader at the helm is such an important thing. So I think to teach our children that, regardless of age, race, gender, really, the things that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. did talk about, judging a man not by the color of his skin, but the content of his character, we have absolutely got to take that to heart again in this country.
I love that. Just focusing on someone's qualifications and being there at grassroots level. I think I read or heard somewhere that the president's average donation is only $41.
Yeah.
Something like that. I mean, it's amazing how, you know, the people are making these decisions. And you know, the Constitution wasn't written to control the people. It was written to control the government. That's and right. So that the government doesn't overstep its bounds. You're just so amazing. Is there something that's bringing you joy these days as we end this interview? What's putting a smile on your face during this quarantine?
Oh gosh, well, I don't know. You are inspiring me. I'll tell you what, women like you, it make me very happy to see you out there and building a movement. I think that's very exciting. I am really super excited. We are relaunching actually a brand new television network. I hope people will find us out there. I will be a senior anchor on the network. Right now we're building it, like I said, but you can find us already, and we already have shows out there. It's called America's Voice Network. We just built today our Palm Beach studios. We already have studios in New York and Denver, and also in LA, but we are adding Washington, D.C. Bureau and also the Palm Beach studios here. We are bringing on some big name talent, in addition to Steve Bannon's War Room and Terrence Williams and Tom Borelli and some other names that you would recognize. We have Bill Mitchell and some just amazing talent coming in. And like I said, I'll be joining the lineup in the primetime evening shows. And so I'm super excited about that. It's America's Voice. You can download it. We're on Roku. We have an app. We're on Dish Network. We're on Pluto. So you can find us just about anywhere that you can find Glass TV, we like to say. And we'd love to have your audience join us there for sure. And I'll be posting a lot about it. I'm all over Real Dr. Gina on social media. And I also love to share my book with people. It's Mad Politics is the name of it. Keeping Your Sanity in a World Gone Crazy. And when I wrote it, the really funny thing is I was on Air Force One talking to the president about it. And I was telling him, I said, Mr. President, what do you think, do you think that politics might get less crazy? Like, because it seems like at a fever pitch, when I wrote it. And he said, yeah, I don't think we have to worry about that. So right. It just keeps getting crazier. But it is about how to cope with it and to remind you and to nurture you that, really it is them, they, the elite, that are crazy. We, the people, are not crazy. It's to remind you of that and to nurture your soul in the little ways that matter, so that you are prepared for the fight. And this is a fight, but it's going to be a long fight. And we have to be prepared for the battles. And I'm just honored to join you in that.
Well, Dr. Gina Loudon, thank you so much for giving up of your time today. You are such an inspiration and a model for all of us. And thank you for fighting the good fight and going out there and representing us very well. And we'll be looking for you on all of these social media platforms, and sending my best to you and your family, and see you well.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.